Hey, do you feel like your metabolism has slowed after 40? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you 5 simple ways you can increase your metabolism no matter your age. Because the good news is you're not doomed just because you hit 40. And hey, if you want to grab my metabolism guide I put together, it'll give you even more tips on how to fire up your metabolism. Just drop metabolism guide down below and I'll get that over to you. Okay, let's dive into these fitness and nutrition strategies that are going to help you boost your metabolism in your 40s and your 50s. Okay. And hey, if we haven't met, my name is Becky Fox. I'm a fitness and nutrition coach. I've helped thousands of women over the last 20 years lose the fat without having to give up their favorite foods or spend hours in the gym. All right, so here we go. We're just going to dive into these top tips for you so that you can leave here today with some strategies that are going to help you to be successful. So as you're hopping in, say hello. I'd love to know who's here as well. So the first one, let's talk a little bit about exercise and movement, because I think there's a lot of myths out there when it comes to fitness, right? There's a lot of confusing, well, fitness and nutrition, right? There's so much confusing information. One person says one thing, one person says the complete opposite. So let's set things straight here a little bit today. So the first thing you want to be doing is strength training. Okay. If you're a woman, I mean, really at any age, but if you're over 40, over 50, strength training is even way more important at this point in our life, because one of the key things that's going to help us to keep our metabolism fired up, stay strong, burn fat, feel our best, is having muscle on our body. Now, a lot of times we think just because we hit 40, our metabolism slows down. Well, a lot of times it has more to do with the fact that we're losing a muscle, right? We're spending years at a desk job where we're just sitting. We're not, moving and as active as we used to. Maybe our diet has shifted. We're not getting in as much protein. And so that when we lose muscle, okay, and maybe we've even done a lot of these like really extreme diets where we're not just losing fat, we're losing muscle. This is going to slow our metabolism down over time. So one of the easiest things you can do to start seeing some really fast shifts is to focus on strength training. So this is lifting, weights, and we want to be doing this for most people, at the bare minimum 2 times a week. And if you're more advanced, we want to see about 3 to 4 times a week. More isn't always better here. That recovery is just as important as the hard workouts that we're doing. So muscle matters a lot for metabolism. And we want to make sure, especially, I know a lot of you guys that follow me, you have a fat loss goal. And it's really important as we're losing weight, okay, that we're losing fat and not muscle in the process, okay? And so strength training is going to combat us losing muscle in the process of losing fat. So we want to make sure we're incorporating strength training into what we're doing to aid with that, okay? So if you're not lifting heavy, get out there and start doing it now. It's never too late to get started. And we do want to be lifting heavy when we're strength training. So I see a lot of women, I ran gyms for a lot of years. And I would see women come in, and they're, they want to use those little like 3-pound or 5-pound weights. We've got to be pushing with heavy weights if we want to see results as well. If you are, worried, like I know a lot of women are out there worried they're going to get bulky, but you're not going to, it's hard to do. Okay. These women that are trying to get muscle for competitions and stuff. I've been there in the past when I competed. It is really hard for most people to add muscle. And then we're worried about lifting like a 15 or a 20-pound dumbbell when you're out there lifting, grocery bags that weigh more than that, or dogs or kids, right? And so we want to be strong for real life activities as well. So how are you going to pick up a 30-pound kid or 40-pound dog if you aren't lifting weights consistently? You're not going to be able to. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm at my sister's right now. Her dog, he weighs about 40 pounds. He just tore a ligament in his leg. He's hobbling around. He's had to be picked up, right, to be put into the car to go to the ER, to help him outside down the steps and all these kinds of things. If my sister was only doing 5-pound weights for their workouts, she'd have a real hard time picking up her dog to get him, into the car and doing these different things. So we want to be strong to build muscle so that we have a high metabolism. But you guys, you are lifting these things in real life. So make sure you're preparing yourself for that stuff. So when these challenges come up in real life, you have the strength to pick up that heavy 40-pound dog, right? And so So strength training over cardio when it comes to boosting our metabolism. Okay, it's not about how many calories we're burning in that workout. It has more to do with having metabolically active muscle. Okay, muscle takes up a lot of energy to maintain, so it's going to keep our metabolism high. It's going to make sure it's going to help us burn more fat. It's going to make sure we're losing fat instead of muscle. Okay, and it looks good. If you're trying to get that like lean toned look, that comes from muscle. Okay, if you're just losing fat and you don't have any muscle on your body, you're just gonna like get skinny fat, and then it's not going to be the look that most of you guys are looking for. Okay, so you got to be strength training. The second piece of this is a lot of women out there, you are working out, you are being active, and you're doing weight training, but we're skipping the movement piece of it. Unfortunately, we can't go work out for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or however long your workout is, and then just like sit on your butt the rest of the day, right? So if you have a desk job or you're just, you're more sedentary, right? We can't ignore the fact that we need to be moving our body more throughout the day. Okay, so when it comes to our actual metabolism, there's a couple of pieces that add up to the amount of calories that we're burning in a day. Exercise is a small piece of that. It's usually around 5%, right? But when it comes to movement, which is like getting in more steps, right? Or just like dancing around your house or getting up and moving around from your desk a little bit more often, what's going to happen there is that can make up to about 15%, up to 15% of the calories we burn in a day. So if all you're doing is a workout and then ignoring getting those steps and that movement in, you're missing a huge piece that can make up 15% of your calorie output in a day and help increase your metabolism in a simple way. So one of the easiest things that I have my clients do is to just start shooting for 8 to 10,000 steps a day. Now, if you're only at 3,000 steps right now because you sit all day for work, don't just try to jump into 8,000 and overwhelm yourself, right? Start small. Maybe you're just going to go from 3,000 to 4,000 steps. And then once you get a hang of that over a couple weeks, you go to 5,000 steps, right? We want to work our way up to getting more steps. Now that could be steps, but you can get steps dancing around your house, doing a yoga class, doing some stretches. Like it's about moving your body more than what you're doing now. And that movement is really going to add up. Plus, you guys, I don't know about you, but like when I move my body more often, I have more energy. Like I've been sitting a lot today. Every time I get up, I feel all tight and stiff because I'm going for a walk after this. So like, I got to get out and move a little bit, right? So not only is it going to help our metabolism, but we're going to feel better overall. Your body is going to feel better. Your energy is going to feel better. And it's an easy way because you can break it up however you want. It doesn't have to be like one long walk. It can be little breaks throughout your day. Okay. But especially this time of year, as it's getting nice out, I really do encourage you to take advantage of that. Get out in nature, get outside, because it's also a great way to relieve stress. And stress is a big part. We're going to talk about that in a minute. That's a huge part of helping us to have an optimized metabolism as well. Hey, Evelyn, what's up? All right, number 3. Okay, so strength training and movement. Now let's start to dive into food and nutrition a little bit. There's 2 big dial movers that are going to make a big difference. Okay, now for many of you, okay, I work with a lot of women in their 40s and their 50s. And in this, I remember even when I was younger, it was always about slashing your calories, right? Eat as little as possible. I can't tell you how many women I talk to that are trying to eat 1,200 calories a day, right? And then when they're not losing weight, they're like, all right, I'm going to try 1,000. So we've been taught to slash calories, and this is going to seem very counterintuitive, but we have to fuel our body. We have to fuel our metabolism. Okay, our car is not going to go if we don't put the gas in it. Our metabolism is not going to go if we don't put the gas in it. Okay, so by chronically undereating all the time, a couple things will happen. Okay, first of all, for a lot of you guys, this is going to increase hunger and this is going to increase cravings. So for a lot of women, like I know for myself, when I was trying to follow a low calorie diet, I could do it for a while, but at some point, man, I couldn't take it anymore. And I would binge eat the crap out of some Oreos and some Ben and Jerry's. And it was not pretty. Okay. So the more we undereat, it can lead to binge eating and overeating. Okay. This ping pong back and forth, our metabolism does not like this, but it's also going to keep us from losing weight if we're constantly, restricting and following that with overeating, right? This is why a lot of us tend to stay stuck. Okay. So that's number 1. And number two is something else can happen over time. If we're following low calories for too long, our body will adapt to that. It's called metabolic adaptation. So let's just say that 2,000 calories is your maintenance calories. So if you ate 2,000 calories a day, you maintained your weight, and that was great. So like, cool, I'm going to go on a diet. I want to lose some weight. I got to eat less calories. Because yes, we do have to be in a calorie deficit. That's 100% true. But let's say we go from 2,000 as our maintenance and we go to 1,200. Well, our body doesn't like that. Okay. Our body doesn't like that. So it says, hey, we need to adapt to this because we're not getting our body's not getting what it needs. And we don't know when it's going to get more. So we can be okay doing this for say 12 weeks, maybe 16 weeks. But if we do this for a long, long period of time where we're just following 1,200 calories, our body's going to adapt down to this. And it's called metabolic adaptation. So what happens over time is now all of a sudden your maintenance is 1,200 calories. So guess what happens if you decide to go off that diet? So one of two things is going to happen. You're going to plateau and nothing's going to happen, and you're going to get frustrated because you haven't hit your goal. Or you're going to hit your goal and now you try to start eating, you try to go back to 2,000 calories. Well, guess what? You have adapted down, meaning that 2,000 calories is no longer maintenance. It is now a surplus, and you're going to gain weight back. This is why a lot of people do actually rebound and gain more weight back after a diet, because we can't just jump right back into that maintenance that we had before. So we want to do a couple things to make sure. Well, first of all, we want to fuel our body. So when we do go into a calorie deficit, we want to go into a smaller calorie deficit so that our hunger and our cravings stay in check. So we're not binge eating and doing crazy things to counteract that. We also want to keep it smaller so that we have a little bit more wiggle room and we're not adapting down so low. Okay. And then what we would like to do is we don't want to stay in fat loss phase forever. We shouldn't just, if you got 50 pounds to lose, you don't want to just, even if it's 16 or 1,800 calories, we don't want to just drop to that and stay there for, a year. Okay. We want to cycle through. So we're going to want to maybe go to a 12 or a 16-week fat loss phase, eat lower calories, and take a break. Right? And we want to and it's called a diet break, where we might take a week where we eat more so that our metabolism doesn't down-regulate to that lower calories. We can maintain that higher maintenance level. Okay, that's going to help you burn more fat in the long run. Plus, it allows you to do things like maybe you take a vacation where you just want to eat more, or just mentally you need a break from dieting, because after 12 to 16 weeks, it can be very taxing. So taking a break, I know we want to get to that goal faster, but taking that break will actually help you get to that goal faster, because it's going to keep us from hitting that metabolic adaptation where our actual maintenance goes down and we're not burning fat anymore. And it's just going to give us that mental break. Now, a lot of ways to tell that if you've been dieting and you've been eating low calories for a long time, a great way to know that you're ready for this is because maybe your hunger, there's going to be feedback. Your hunger might be worse, your cravings might be worse, your sleep might be crappy, maybe your mood is going down. So all these things can start to be signs that, hey, it's time to take a break. Your body's going to start to give you feedback to help you know what you need to do to move into the right direction. And this is where coaching and support can be really helpful, because sometimes it's hard to know, hey, when is it time to take a diet break? Or, hey, if I do hit a plateau and you don't know what to do because you don't want to just slash calories more, having somebody there to help you and support you can go such a long way. Okay. So it's not about slashing calories. We want to eat enough that, yes, we're burning fat. So yes, we're in a calorie deficit, but we're fueling our metabolism in a way that we're maintaining muscle as we're losing fat. We're keeping our hunger and our cravings in check. Our energy will stay high. Our mood will stay good, right? I remember when I was trying to do really low calories, I was tired all the time. I was hungry all the time. I was cranky all the time. It's no wonder it was hard to stick to that for any length of time. I can only do it for about 16 weeks, and then I would binge eat and go crazy for months at a time. So we want to avoid those extremes if we want to keep our metabolism and our fat loss and our results in check. Okay. And another thing that can happen when we go too low with calories is that another way our body compensates is we tend to move less. So we actually burn less calories. Okay. So our body's going to do a lot of things to compensate when we try to go too low. So yes, calorie deficit, but a small calorie deficit, a doable calorie deficit, something that feels more sustainable and realistic. And even with that, we want to take breaks from time to time so that our body doesn't adapt to that and we give ourselves that mental break. Okay. All right. Now, the other side of food that can be really helpful is making sure, and I'm so glad this is getting a lot of light lately. Like it's, getting in more protein, right? So I think most of us at this point have probably heard about the importance of having protein in our diet. And, it does a lot of things. It helps us feel fuller. It helps us feel satisfied from the food that we're eating. We talked about muscle at the beginning of this. We're not going to build muscle if we're not giving the muscle the building blocks that it needs, which is that protein. And muscle is the key to a healthy metabolism, right? Without muscle, our metabolic rate is going to slow down. And so we have to lift weights, but we have to fuel our body with enough calories and the protein to make sure we're actually building that muscle. Okay. Now, protein has another really cool thing. So when we're talking about our metabolism, it has a lot to do with energy balance, right? So how much we're eating, how much we're expending, right? These things are not fixed. They will change, right? Just like we talked about metabolic adaptation, it can change because we're under fueling. It can change if we're over exercising or doing different things. Okay. And even the types of movement, exercise, like we talked about here, can impact our metabolism in different ways. Now, when we're talking about calorie output, one of the really cool things about protein is that it takes more energy to break protein down than it does carbs or fats. So one of the other benefits, not to just mention, the fullness factor, the building muscle factor, but protein is also going to increase our calorie burn, right? Without having to work out, which is awesome, right? We still want to work out, but it's just going to add on to that exercise piece, that movement piece, that now we've got us breaking down. So if two people were exactly the same, doing the exact same workouts, eating the exact same amount of calories, and one person was eating like no protein and the other person was eating, say, 140 grams of protein, a person eating 140 grams of protein would burn more fat simply because they would be burning more calories breaking down that protein. So cool little side benefit of that increases our metabolism by just eating more protein. Okay. So when it comes to nutrition, we want to fuel our body. We want to eat enough calories so that our hunger, our energy, our mood, our cravings, all that stuff stays in check and that we're decreasing that metabolic adaptation. Okay. And we also want to make sure to get protein. So we want protein at every meal, 30 grams of protein at every meal if we can. Everybody's goal is going to be a little bit different, right? Because it's going to depend on a really fast formula is to take your goal body weight, and a starting point would be to times that times 0.7, right? But for most people, women, it's going to be around 100, at the bottom to about 140 grams of protein typically in there. Okay. So fueling that body, getting that protein. Now, the last piece of this that I want to talk about, because a lot of times when we're talking about metabolism and fat loss and all these things, people are just focusing on the fitness and nutrition. But a lot of times what gets forgotten is sleep and stress. Sleep and stress is really important too. And we can't ignore these two things. So if we're trying to eat really well and we're trying to work out, but then we're getting 5 hours of sleep, or, we never take any quiet downtime for ourselves to recharge, that's going to impact your results. It's going to impact your metabolism. Okay. And so making sure, one, right, we have to get enough sleep. We have to get quality sleep. Now, I get it. Once we start hitting menopause, it's a little easier said than done. We only have, we can do things that will help, but yeah, sometimes, right, we can't control the fact that we're waking up more often and these kinds of things, right? But sometimes that might mean making sure we have a nice nighttime routine that helps us relax and fall asleep sooner. So we still have a bigger window that even if we're waking up, we're getting more sleep in that window, right? Or, right, if we are constantly stressed out, right? So I was just talking to a girl that signed up for coaching earlier today, and she was talking about how, she has a very stressful job and she's really trying to work to set better boundaries around not answering work things on the weekends or at night when she goes home, right? And that's such a great first step. Managing stress is going to play into everything, really everything, right? Because what happens when we're stressed out? We tend to maybe work out less, or we don't have as much energy for working out. We tend to stress eat, right? Because that's how we've learned how to cope with all the stress that's going on. So it's really important that we do set boundaries around things like work, that we take time to recharge, right? As much as I know we are women that want to put everybody else first, you guys have heard this. Who do you put the mask on first if the airplane's going down? Yourself or the person next, the kid next to you or the husband or whoever. You help the person next to you, right? So if you're on the plane with a kid, you're going to put it on them. Or put your mask on so you can put it on them. That's what I'm trying to say. That's coming out wrong, right? So if we can't breathe, we're not going to be able to help somebody else that's next to us, right? And so it's no different when it comes to our self-care. If we are not taking time to recharge our battery, to de-stress, we are not going to be able to be our best, right? And that is going to impact, right? Because what happens when our sleep is off? Our cravings are higher. We want carbs more, right? It starts to spiral into other areas and makes it more difficult for us to stay on track. Okay, so really making sure that you are getting in sleep, that you're managing your stress, right? And that could be doing relaxing activities. It could be setting better boundaries. It could be saying no to things you don't want to be doing. There's lots of different ways we can help to manage that stress, right? These things are going to help us all around. And so we can't ignore these things. And one of the things that happens, ladies, as we start to hit perimenopause and menopause, unfortunately, we are not as, our bodies don't handle stress as well. Progesterone, estrogen are declining. So we are more reactive to stress. Okay. This is why sometimes the things that we tried when we were in our 20s, like doing 2 hours of cardio a day or going on a 1,000-calorie diet, might have worked then. But once these hormones start to shift, our body can't handle that level of stress. So that's why we're going to end up storing fat. Our body doesn't think it's safe to store, to let go of that fat. We might feel more tired. We might feel more agitated. We might feel more cranky. So it's even more important that we make sure the approach that we're taking with our fat loss, okay, is for this stage of life, right? You guys probably don't use the same skincare you used in your 20s. Why are we expecting that our fat loss plan and the things that we're doing are the same when we start hitting our 40s and our 50s, right? We are more reactive to stress. We have to keep in mind, stress isn't just mental, it's physical, right? So we have to make sure the foods that we're putting in our body, that we're fueling our body properly, that we're doing the right types of movement and activity for this stage of life so that we can make sure to see the results that we want to see. Okay. All right, you guys. So that is my top metabolism tips to help increase your metabolism as a woman over 40. Which one stood out to you the most below? Was it, making sure you're getting in that strength training and that you're lifting heavy? Okay. Don't just pick up the little baby weights, the little pink weights, that you're moving, right? We can't just exercise. We need to move. We need to fuel our body with enough calories and the right types of foods, right? So making sure we're getting things like protein in there, and that sleep and stress matter just as much as all the fitness and the nutrition and everything else that we're doing. All right, so drop your biggest takeaway down below. If you want to grab my metabolism guide, just drop metabolism down below. I'll get that sent over to you. And of course, I appreciate you being here and joining me for this live. I'll be back next week, 3 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday as well for another one just like this. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.